You've been military advisor. You get that there are things which are military objectives which have to be done, and then there is perception. You met with several media personnel when you were here, think tanks, and there are many who feel that maybe the military objectives were met, but there's a level of dissatisfaction among many people that it should have just continued for a couple of days more, leveled those air bases, leveled the terror factories, maybe got back Pakistan occupied Kashmir, expand the area of activity. Tell me, as a military man, as a military scholar, how do you manage, how do military planners manage perception and military goals?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's more on the actually, and this is for democracies why it's so hard. For Pakistan, it's not, right? They can say what they want and they don't care if they have legitimacy, credibility, authority, that they control it. And a democracy is really complex, especially which is I think the best is civilian leadership of the military. I can argue with four-star generals, and I do all the time, or defense secretaries even about, okay, what was the political goal established by the political leadership? Was that achieved objectively? And I can say, looking at Operation Sindoor, objectively, the political goal, which was limited, and this is where you get into the escalation dominance. If you want to go beyond achieving that limited goal, which on this one, for the amount of price that India paid, and although every life is important, the accomplishments are generational. We'll see on how long it lasts, but I try to marry the conversation by, even if I'm talking to a very military person or a very kind of within the population who doesn't really understand the nuances, is remind people of what the objective of a war is. And in this case, you look towards political leadership. Okay, what did they say the objectives were each step of the way? And this is, again, why Operation Sindoor fascinates me so much, is how much communication was happening from the leadership, the civilian leadership, the prime minister and minister of external affairs and others, and the military, same sheet of music, daily communication to achieve a limited goal that was for Pakistan, that was for external audiences, and it was even for the Indian people to understand. There's always the outsiders that think that they could have changed history by doing something else. They just don't know the second and third order effects of had a decision to go farther, do more, had been taking. And this is where I don't do kind of revisionist history, or I don't try to war game. I try to look at what happened. And in this case, it is conclusive that India achieved strategic goals at a low cost by changing the entire paradigm of the entire region, in my opinion.
You spoke about comms, so I'm going to end the conversation on comms, ask you this last question. You've authored several books, you understand about communication so well. Do you think that India communicated properly to the world, effectively? Because there are many who feel that Pakistan is always one step ahead of India as far as communication is concerned. They bombard the airwaves with their point of view. They did that in earlier operations as well. And even here, they were more proactive, whereas India is hesitant in admitting there's this strategic ambiguity. You were asking me whether we know more on the ground. Believe me, it was very hard to get information. There were regular press interactions, yes, but India has always been a little resistant when it comes to sharing of information during active operations, and one saw that happening this time too. Is that beneficial? Do you think that worked this time, or does India need to get its act together? It needs to better its act.
Yeah, it's a great question. It was a big part of my study and continues to be, is that kind of the narrative warfare, the information operations, as we call it, aspect. Of course, India, everybody can always do something better. But I view, and this is what part of my study will be, how many times did India communicate? What did they communicate? And the fact that, and it is unique as somebody who studies war, for a military to have a press conference with that level of intelligence revealed, as in the videos, the satellite imagery, the exact locations. Of course, democracies want 100% transparency for operational security, for other reasons. there's reasons why you can't have 100% clarity. On the Pakistan side, you saw trying to put out information with zero evidence, and you saw like social media that I live in, people eating them alive, basically meme warfare and things because of the statements they were making without the credibility. But you did have international media believing some of the lies, and to where which is really unique and part of my study is how did the story of supposedly knocking down so many Indian aircraft become such a global story when that's like the trees through the woods. I mean, there's so many reasons why that would happen, and it has nothing. There's a much larger story here of military dominance, strategic change in approach, so many other stories. So there's lessons here for the information operations. You're right. I believe that India navigated that very uniquely, and part of my study is how much they communicated and what did they show. You always want to keep things internal, of course. There are lessons you want to learn within yourselves, but the ideal that India would have 100% transparent. I don't work in the media, so I would understand why media would be frustrated. But I've worked in other parts of the world where there's zero communication, and I mean zero, which makes it even harder to, even in democracy, to say, "Oh, what's happening? What's going on?" It's a fine line to balance. Of course, there's lessons there to be learning, like fighting. When you see a story going viral, you have to fight that, and that's an issue with governments. Really are challenged that they want to be proactive, not reactive, but you have to do both.
Do subscribe to the ANI Clips channel to get shorter versions of this podcast. Click here to watch the full episode.